All right. Now we call the meeting. If we got board commissioners to order, Mr. Brown has a meeting and properly advertised.
Yes, sir, it has.
Yeah. Did Mr. Parker join us? Did he join us? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Commissioner, if you lead us in our prayer, and if you remember the Mr. Shaw family, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
In process, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the opportunity that you give us to serve the people and the citizens of Liberty County. We pray, dear Heavenly Father, that you'll continue to be with those who have lost loved ones, for the Shaw family and the Proctor family, Lord. We just pray for comfort during this time and give them all that they need to move forward, Lord. And I pray also for those workers that are on the front line, for those in the medical field, Lord, for those throughout Liberty County, Lord, that are still working. I pray for their safety, Lord, during this virus. We thank you, dear Savior, for keeping our numbers down in this community, and we pray that they would continue to stay down, dear Lord. Father, as we come together to do the business of the county, I just pray, Father, that you would give us all that we need to conduct our business here and to conduct it in a professional way. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Before we begin, I need to add one item, Commissioners, to the agenda. This is also National Nurses Week, so they came by the hospital. They had me sign a proclamation of him. So item C will be National Nurses Week proclamation that's been signed. With that, we'll move forward. Mr. Brown, National Day of Prayer proclamation.
Yes, sir. Did you want to do the minutes?
The minutes. Yes, sir. That's the minutes of April. I'm sorry. We need to approve the minutes of April. I think it was 7th. Yes. Did you have a chance to review those?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from April.
Yes, second.
Second. Justin Frazier.
All right. Mr. Brown, you want to do the roll call here?
I will. Commissioner Frazier?
I'm present.
Are you voting in favor? Commissioner Gilliard. Commissioner Gilliard.
Here. Aye.
Commissioner Lovett.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Thrift.
In favor.
And Commissioner Walden.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. The minutes are approved. Now, proclamations. 3. One is the first is the National Day of Prayer proclamation.
Yes, these have been provided out to you ahead of time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. National Day of Prayer and National Travel and Tourism Week, and as I just mentioned, National Nurses Week. So we recognize these 3 different entities for the work, for what they bring to our community. Of course, we all know the value of prayer, travel and tourism, and we certainly want to appreciate nurses in the season that we're in now. So we, let's not routine, but for this time, let's just, I was going to say, let's just do a roll call to approve these 3 proclamations. One more time, Mr. Brown.
Commissioner Frazier.
Chair, President, I accept.
Commissioner Gilliard.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Lovett.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner Thrift.
Aye.
And Commissioner Walden.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Approve and accept this proclamation. New business, finance, Mr. Lawson.
Yes, sir. Everybody received the March financial report, and I can hit a few highlights, or if you have questions, you can go right to the questions. I'm not sure how detailed you want me to get it, but I can give the regular report even though it's on March, or I can just answer questions. What would you like?
I said the regular report.
Who's in the race?
Okay.
Just Tim?
So right now, okay. So at the end of March, we actually had undesignated, unreserved fund balance of approximately 7.1 months. A year ago this time, we had 6.8 months. So we're about the same. Our budget went up slightly from last year, and we've got a little bit more. So I believe we're running exactly the same as we were last year, which is good. There are a couple of departments that showed up on our radar. County administration showed up. They're running slightly ahead of schedule. And this is basically due to the payments made to Mercer Group associated with the recruitment of our assistant county administrator. Risk management continues to run ahead of things because of those lump sum payments that we make in the fall. Government buildings is running over budget because of the unbudgeted expense that we incurred due to the security system upgrade. That was about $126,000 that was not budgeted, but that Jerry's budget has to absorb. Judicial administration, which is court reporters, are continuing to run ahead of schedule. And last of all, narcotics. They're running over in a few different line items. Overtime, all their fringe benefits, vehicle repair and maintenance, and purchase of evidence. I actually sent an email today to Sasha, to John Long, and to Tina, the admin person of narcotics, to inform them that they only as of the end of April, which we haven't closed April yet, but as of the end of April, they only have about $75,000 left. We've got 5 more payrolls to post through the end of June, and their payrolls alone will be over $90,000, and that doesn't include any FICA retirement or anything else with that. So I sent the email out today to tell them they're going to run out of money before June even gets here. And they need to figure out where they're going to get some more money from. I suggested that they talk to the chief deputy, which I CC'd John, and find out if they can take money from the sheriff's department or from the jail, because they're wanting to purchase some. They've got an opportunity for some training things that have come up, and I've already told them we're not going to be issuing new purchase orders because they're going to be out of money anyway. So that is one department that we know for sure will be out of money before June ends. And I've already told them that. Going on to solid waste, we've got about $500,000 net income so far, although we have not charged any depreciation yet for the year. So that will come down slightly, but we've achieved about almost 94% of our budgeted revenues through the end of March. So solid waste is looking real good. I will tell you also, Kathy and I discussed today the information that we're feeding Culbertson and Associates. It's actually MWS Associates, because they're the ones engaged to do the cost study so that we can make sure that those assessments are accurate. If there's any adjustments that will be needed for the upcoming increase in homes, and to make sure that our commercial rates are also on target. When you go to sales tax, all of the other special revenue operations and funds are operating, with the exception of recreation. They were running slightly ahead of schedule, although I imagine by the time we close April, that'll come right back in line because they didn't have quite the expenses that they did in March, and all of those programs were shut down. So I'm sure that'll fall right back in line. Sales tax. For March, we actually received $718,000 in sales tax. we had budgeted to receive $744,000. So we were about $25,000 short of our budgeted amount. I will go ahead and tell you we have received the April SPLOST distribution from the state, and it was up significantly from last month. It was $847,000, which is much more than the $744 budgeted. However, the April distribution represents the March sales, and March sales are always higher than February because people typically get their income tax check and they go out and spend. So when I compared the increase from February to March of this year compared to February to March of last year's increase was 21% from February to March. This year's increase was 17.8%. But more specifically, when I compare the April distribution of this year to the April distribution of last year, we were down by 1%. And that just starts to reflect the shutdown that took place that last week or week and a half of March. So when we were doing the budgeting, I told Joey and Joe that we'll really start to feel the impact when we close April and we get all of those April numbers, when we get the fines and forfeitures turned over from the clerk of court, when we get our loss and our SPLOST from the state. That's really when you're going to feel the pinch, because April was the month that a lot of those businesses were shut down, and there wasn't court going on, and there wasn't fines and tickets being written. So we'll start to get a better idea of how this pandemic has impacted us when we get the April results. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me. But that's all I have on the report. I'll put it that way. Yes, sir.
Kim, go back to narcotics.
Uh-huh.
And Mr. Brown and the chairman, can we get a report from them? They used to at one time they would provide us with a report on what their activity looked like, and are they doing any compensating of funds or just drugs for them to be putting in the overtime?
Yeah, their overtime this year is out of the park. Joey, if you want, I can request that from the chief to see if they can provide us with information. If you want me to reach out, or
Yeah, Kim, I can. That'll be fine. I was just making a note for that.
okay.
And I'll copy you. I'll copy you on my email to him.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Anything else from Kim?
Yes, I do. I think Joey, did you send out the audit information?
Yes.
Did they get that in the packet?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
also going to discuss this. You're going to discuss real quickly the budget calendar too.
Okay, so the budget calendar. We will have a public hearing on June 2nd. Not sure how that's going to work, but we're going to have a public hearing on June 2nd. And typically we have the public hearing on the first meeting of June, and we adopt at the mid-month. But not knowing how the mid-month meetings are going to, come back online or something, you may end up having a called meeting to adopt it, or adopt it at your mid-month if you so have a mid-month meeting in June. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'll have to advertise that 2 weeks before we actually have that public hearing. So I really need to have something that's somewhat tentatively adoptable to put on the website, because if we're going to have a meeting like this where people call in, they're going to need to be able to inspect it. And I don't know, I'm not sure when the building is going to open up or how that's going to work. if we have a copy of the proposed budget up here and we let, one person at a time come in by appointment or something to review it, and or we put it on our website so that people can review it and submit questions ahead of time. Those kind of things still need to be worked out, and Joey and I haven't exactly nailed them down. I guess that's what I know about the budget calendar.
Yeah, we will, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members, we will, obviously when y'all decide, what y'all probably will have some conversation tonight about next month, or at least after the governor's order expires and sees what that does. But, we'll make whatever arrangements we need to make, either virtually, in-person contacts, for review. I mean, that's doable. And we'll nail that down once we see exactly how y'all are moving forward. So that won't be an issue anyway. We want to work it.
Okay.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You all right?
Okay,
Now
so now we talk about the proposed audit. So last year was actually supposed to be the third year of a 3-year contract for Carp Ronning and Tyndall. Malden and Jenkins actually ended up acquiring Carp Ronning and Tyndall during the off time. So he came in into last year's audit with Malden and Jenkins kind of absorbing Carp Ronning and Tyndall and agreeing to honor that third and final year of that contract. I reached out to them to see if they would provide us a 1 and 3 year proposal to do the audit, and they sent it to us, and you should have gotten a copy of that. And it was $60,000, $61,000, and $62,000 for fiscal year 2021 and 22. So I guess we need to vote on that if you want to approve that proposal.
What had been the previous fees?
I'm sorry?
Are these in line with their previous fees?
Yes, the last one I think was $59.4 was actually what it should have been. They actually ended up billing us a little bit less than what Carp Ronning and Tyndall's work was because of so much work that Derek did. We actually engaged him separately.
Right. So, Kim, I guess the main question is, you are the one that's working with these people directly. Are you satisfied with them?
Absolutely. I was satisfied with them before we went out for bid the last time. But, really, I'll work with anybody y'all choose. It's easiest to continue to work with the same people because they know us. They know our systems. They know our people. They know how things flow here. I'm happy with their work. Joey, do you have anything to add to that?
No, ma'am. I agree 100% with you, but yet, even with them, and they know the flows and they know all that, they're at arm's length. So they call it as they see it. So I feel real good that they're giving us an honest report. And it does help with that flow a lot to expedite the completion of it. And Kim and her folks and these guys, if you remember, completed the audit on time. And that's very, very important. So my recommendation too is to try to engage them. I think very reasonably priced for another 3 years.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Eddie.
Yes, sir.
I'm in agreement with Kim and Joey. There's just one thing that I don't know. I don't get a chance to review that thing, I guess, as closely as I would like to, but the documentation, Kim, that's coming in from those for each department for a contractor that we hire or anybody, are you getting that? I mean, are they providing that to you? And is it in the audit documentation of, X amount of dollars and what it was used for in that audit? Revenue.
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry. You said if somebody we contracted with provided us. Okay.
The auditor that we've got right now.
Yes.
Are you satisfied that the documentation? I mean, the numbers across the board that they give us is one thing, but when they go in and do that audit, whether it's revenues or expenditures, are those revenues and expenditures documented well enough that we can say this dollar amount was used for A, B, and C? Is that being done, or is it just show per department? And I'm asking that on the heels of the question that Commissioner Stevens said about are we having the documentation we need on our expenditures?
So let me kind of address a couple of things. So any auditor that comes in is going to audit at a materiality threshold. So while they select samples both on revenues and expenditures, they're not going to look at every single thing. It's just cost prohibitive. So what they're going to do is they're going to select samples from every department, from every check register, from every deposit, from every billing statement, and they're going to look at those samples. And if something falls out of line of what we've recorded, then they're going to test some more. They're going to select more samples to get comfortable with the numbers that we've provided them. So as far as like documentation of where every single penny went or what came in was spent on what, it's not really, all the money comes in and into the general fund. So I can't, I wouldn't even try and say, okay, we had $2 million in fines and forfeitures, and this much was spent on this and this. It all goes into one lump sum general fund revenue. Now, we can say with a pretty good assurance that the expenses that were recorded by department, actually occurred and were booked correctly. So it's not necessarily this revenue was spent on this expense. It was, here's total revenues, here's total expenses by department, here's total revenues by line item. And that's kind of what they're testing. We don't really say this revenue was spent on this expense. Does that help answer your question?
Well, it does, but what I'm getting at is I wonder if going forward, if we are not, just like anybody else would, we pull a department and we say, let's just say, for instance, that we take solid waste and we go in there and we dissect it. Next year, it won't be solid waste. If we feel good about it, it may be something else that's under, Joey's administration. I know you can't do the whole thing, but in any particular case, whether it's even got folks that's working out here with the health department that's on contract. We've got people out here that's working, even Trent is a contractor for the county. He's our engineer, but, hey, we get his monthly billing, and we know what the monthly billing says, but do we ever go in there and say, okay, break this down for me and tell me, what was done? And that's what I'm asking. Is that something that any of the auditors will do, Kim, or are we going to have to ask them to do that?
No, you would have to pay for that if you actually. Now they do what they call a single audit, and that's based on a federal award program like child support or Wright Army Airfield, where federal funds are concerned, and they go in there and they look at every single line item. So typically every year, in addition to our normal audit, we also have what we call a single audit, and that looks at those federal award programs, typically child support. But it has on occasion been Wright Army Airfield too. But if you're asking any auditor in any given year to go in and specifically dissect a department or a fund, no, you're gonna pay extra for that.
That's
Okay,
almost what you call a forensic audit, right, Kim?
Well, a forensic audit, you're actually looking for something. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're going to turn over every single thing to see if you can find a pattern of something, to see if you can find, something that's out of line. And again, I think what they do is they test enough. They look at the budgets, they look at the monthly reports, they look at a sample of expenditures in multiple months to see if they're accurate, if they're proper, if they are normal in nature, that sort of thing. And if they fall outside of those, then that's when they would ask me or Joey specifically about either an expense or a revenue, and they would get clarification. If they didn't feel good about the clarification, or if Joey or I could not explain it, then they would do more testing.
Right.
In order for them to feel, sure about what we've reported.
Well, that answered my question somewhat, Kim. I was wondering, let's just take for example, one example. We get LMIG money, Joey, for the county. All right? I know we contracted out by whoever is going to get it, and does the state ever come down here and say, okay, this is what you used it on, and to make sure that we're spending it properly? Or does that would go to the county engineer and he'd look at it, and that's where it would end?
Well, it's a couple of things. Now, I will tell you that the auditor does look at those SPLOST. I mean, more specifically, they look at those SPLOST expenditures, including LMIG monies, because those are all items that are going to be capitalized. So they test any SPLOST thing separately, and they do look at that probably a little bit more thoroughly than just the other departments, because that is a special revenue fund, because there are construction projects going on. Now, what they're going to look at is, okay, you had this much LMIG money. Show me the projects you spent it on, and we're going to show them the projects we spent it on. Then they're going to look at those projects, and they're going to look at the cost of the project. They're going to look at everything that went into that project, including the contractor costs, including the engineering costs, any architecture costs, any environmental costs, and they're going to look at the invoice, and they're going to look at the overall project to see if it's reasonable, and they're going to talk to Joey and Trent about it.
So, Commissioner Walden, the state does not, they reserve the right to, but they have not ever audited LMIG or LARP funds, to my knowledge. But we are required to separate those in such a way that if they came, we could show exactly what the expense was for and where it was done. And Kim, after she made some changes, she really tuned some things up. After the person that used to work with Splosh left, and she has got it detailed now where she can break out, in fact, those LMIG funds, if they're split between districts, she gives that on your report. She can show that breakout to what percentage and what portion was used of that contract in that district. So I think we feel pretty good that if we were ever audited by the state or anybody else on that detail, it's much, much better than I think any others would have. We feel real good about the basis for it.
Well, the main question is, I want to make sure that is correct, because we're going to try our best to get more grants and more LMIG money. And if our numbers are correct, then they'll probably say, you can bet your bottom dollar those folks down there are following up like they're supposed to. So, but I'm sorry for taking everybody's time, but that's just something I wanted to ask. I have been asked that question more recently than I tell them my district is basically within the city, but there's a lot of people who are asking about that. So wanted to be able to share some information, and thank you, Kim and Joey.
No problem. No problem. I just, like I said, anything that deals with capital assets, they actually test that separately. And SLOSS deals with all, capital assets. So they look at projects in process, things that haven't started, things that have completed, because all of that goes into our fixed asset ledger, and all of that impacts our entity-wide balance sheet significantly. So they look at SLOSS with a fine-tooth comb.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
Kim, don't they look at cash transactions with a fine-tooth comb also? Any kind of cash transactions? Don't I recall that?
So they do. They have two different things they do. One is the materiality threshold. So they determine our risk level, and then by our controls. There's a very, 20-page document that Clint Stanley and myself have to answer every year about our processes and about our controls. Based on that, they determine a materiality threshold. So they'll select a sample of, let's say 200 different transactions that went through on this account. And it'll all be over the threshold. Then they'll turn around and they'll select like another 50 transactions that were below the threshold just to see, because you've got to test both. But they make sure that materiality threshold is low enough to where they're capturing things that would prevent a misstatement, but they also test things below the threshold so that they can make sure that the little things, or that there isn't a human error or a human fraud going on for the little things, because it has been determined in the past that certain businesses, certainly not ours, but once accounting departments learn the threshold, then they do transactions below the threshold, and they think they won't get caught. But our auditors select both selections over the threshold and then some that are under the threshold, just as a general rule of thumb.
Okay. I thought there was special emphasis on that. Okay. All right.
On certain cash collection sites, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You heard the recommendation from Mr. McLaughlin to continue doing business with Malden and Jenkins. June 30th, $60,000. This year, June 30th, 2021, $61,000, and 2022, $62,000. That's your recommendation, Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the contract with Malden and Jenkins for 3 years.
Okay.
Second. Connie, the rest.
Okay. Motion from Commissioner Stevens, second from Commissioner Thrift. Any further discussion? There being none, Mr. Brown, the roll call.
Commissioner Frazier.
Aye.
Commissioner Gilliard.
Aye.
Commissioner Lovett.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner Thrift.
Aye.
And Commissioner Walden.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Ayes have it. Motion passed. All right. Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin.
Thank you. If there's anything else, please just call me or email me.
Thank you. Will do.
All right.
Engineering, Mr. Long.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't know if everybody has a copy of their status report in front of them or not, but I'll kind of go through this as briefly as I can. First, I want to talk about the Isle of Wight Fire Station. The building is up. The bathroom is framed in. The electrical is roughed in. The plumbing is the second leg of the plumbing is going in this week. So things are moving along out there. One thing that we did not have the price on when we got all the approvals a couple months ago was the bay heater. We had budgeted $2,500 based on the prices that we were getting with the East End Fire Station, and the price that we got to do the bay heater for the Isle of Wight Fire Station is $1,306.08. That would be change order to Dee's Electric, And so tonight I'll need to get that approved. I don't know if you want to try to do that now in this part of it, or do you want to come back to the end, Chairman?
Let's do it now while we're going this way. Commissioners, you heard Mr. Long said that we have change order in the amount of 1306 bay heater. Is there a motion to approve that change order for that amount?
Is that gas or electric, Trent?
Electric.
Okay. So will there be a generator down there to go with that?
No, sir.
Well, I mean, I see a little hiccup right there. If the power goes out and it's cold, it's not going to do those trucks any good. Now, let's keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Stevens, good point. And I'm following up with Mr. Long and/or the contractor. You may remember last time, Commissioner Walden, y'all discussed that same thing. And so we want to try to get a price for a transfer switch to at least be located there with everything we need so that we can get a grant for the generator.
Okay. All right.
Sure. And I'll make sure I have that price for transfer switch. And I'll give that out to you guys.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question for Mr. Brown. I was does Station 15 have that transfer switch?
Station 15, I don't think has that transfer switch, no, ma'am. But if you'd like to, we can also get a quote on that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. That's all the questions I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, man. Good catch. Good catch. Any other questions from any other commissioner? If not, we'll chair entertain a motion.
Chair, I make that motion that we accept the amount mentioned for the transfer switch at the Isle of Wight station.
Now, this is for the heater, right?
For the heater. Uh-huh.
I mean, for the heater. I'm sorry. Not
yes, the heater. Uh-huh. They're going to find the switch of that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Is there a second to the motion? All right. Commissioner Swift makes the second. Any further discussion? And they will get back with us on tentative pricing for the transfer switches at the Isle of Wight station and at station 15. Am I right, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All in favor of the motion? Roll call, Mr. Brown.
Commissioner Frazier?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilliard? Aye. Commissioner Lovett?
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Commissioner Thrift?
Aye.
And Commissioner Walden?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passed. Thank you. You may continue, Mr. Long.
Okay, the East End Fire Station, right now they're waiting on some of the steel for the building to come in. I think Mr. Brown may have some more information and some pictures for you on that. And didn't know if you wanted to go through that now, Joey, or if that's something that comes up later.
No, sir. I mean, only thing I guess I have to tag on there is that we are just waiting on shipping of the steel from the metal building manufacturer. Trent mentioned the slab's down, so it's ready to erect once it gets there. We're hoping that ships, in fact, the week of the 18th to be able to get here. It's been delayed in that shipping process. Everything else is still on track. They had some pretty long lead times on some things that have been narrowed up. And so don't anticipate, at least at this point, an extension of the contract. Is still due to be occupied by us by the middle of October.
Okay. So, and I was okay. Any more on the fire station?
Sure.
I'm gonna move on to Lewis Fraser Road is the next item on my list. Yes, sir.
Could you hold up while you're on fire stations? You remember I mentioned to you, and I think I may have mentioned it to Mr. Brown. I was in the Fleming area the other day when it was raining, and we need to do something with that Fleming fire station. We had about 4 or 5 inches of water inside the fire station with the trucks being in there and electricity being plugged up trying to keep the truck charge up. And we need to look at that station and doing some kind of drainage down there, Mr. Brown, if possible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Actually, Mr. Brown and I talked about that some today already. And my survey crews have already been down there and picked up some topo around it, so I know which way the water is going now. And Mr. Brown and I were talking about some possible solutions and trying to come up with something that we could talk to you guys about shortly.
Yes, Commissioner Stevens, and just to tag on real quickly with that, as you know, that's kind of a small substation. It's really, as far as the mileage goes from the Lake George station, we're way inside the 5 miles there. So, we do want to bring you a cost estimate on what it may take. That is a leased building for us. So we want to bring you something prudent without spending a lot of money, if we can, for a fix in that area.
I mean, because what I looked at the other day when it was pouring down rain, I think if we can just do some drainage, that would be a big help to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't know how you would divert that water coming off of the highway that's running straight into the station and trying to rush itself out the back door, and it can't.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. I understand. Yes, sir. That's
okay.
Kind of why we're trying to come up with something to present to you.
Okay. All right. Good enough.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to Lewis Fraser Road. The asphalt is down. The end of the contract isn't until June 7th. They are mostly finished. They still have some corrective shoulder work to do for us. Actually, got to get a little bit more dirt on some of the shoulders to make those work a little bit better. Then the pavement markings need to get put down, and then that project will be pretty much finished. But they did a good job getting out there and getting it done. We got a little further than we were expecting with the tonnage we had set up. So we're doing really good with that one because we got all the way to the bridge.
Right,
so it was really a good stopping spot where we got to. So I'm really proud of them for what they did. Melvin Lane, they've got the water line connected, and they started out with the water line across the street. There's not much going on out there this week, but they should be back on it again next week, moving forward with that one.
Hey, Trent.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm looking at a report on Melvin Lane. You got this parentheses that Melvin Lane is in District 4. If you could wait, what they normally do is they wait until I pay for it and then move it into another district.
Right, because I'm sitting waiting now.
Well,
at least they didn't put District 1 on it. The last time you gave it to Marion, so.
Well, but before you give this one to Pat, let me finish paying for it first.
Okay, well, I'll wait.
Okay, all right.
I was just trying to get a jump on the situation.
Okay, all right.
Goodness. I'm going to skip down. One of the last things in my report is NPDS with the green infrastructure. That's a separate item that comes up again later. If you don't mind, I'm going to skip over this one and come back when it comes back up on the agenda. Interstate Paper Road, we're just kind of waiting until after T-Spot so we can see what money who has. Sykes Brothers is the contractor for 3rd Street. We're going to have a pre-construction conference this coming Monday, and then I'll be able to give you start dates and give you a little bit better schedule on that one. I'm going to skip down to the Walterville roadway acceptance. You'll see a copy of the city of Walterville requested that several roads be accepted for maintenance by Liberty County. So these items would need to be added to their intergovernmental agreement for maintenance. Several of them had requirements or things that need to get fixed before we take it for maintenance. A couple of them we are actually already maintaining and don't know why they're not on the list, so we need to add those at some point. I did not know if you guys wanted to try to take any action on those now or if you wanted to kind of do it all at one time.
Well, Trent, what I'd like to do, if we could, I'll get with Mayor Baker and maybe you here and I can get together and take a look at that before we bring it back before the board. I'll get with Larry tomorrow. Well, I got to go out of town tomorrow, but I'll get with Larry this week and we'll schedule a meeting, come up there and see you, and we'll talk about it.
Okay, and I'll be glad to meet wherever you guys want to. Y'all just let me know, and if you need me to assist in getting that meeting set up, just let me know, and I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you a call this week.
Now, Gary,
Okay,
you go ahead.
that works.
Gary, Gary, you go ahead and set that meeting up. It's no cost if you set the meeting up.
It's no cost if I set it up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That's good. I like that. All right. So the Islands Highway box culvert. I'll move on after that one. We're just waiting on one other letter from the coordinating agencies to send that on to FEMA.
Okay.
And I can't remember which agency it was. I got 4 of them, and I'm sorry that I don't have it in my mind which one it was, because we just got the one from the Corps of Engineers last week. We already have DOT. I think we already have Fish and Wildlife, and I'm struggling to say the 5th one. But I will send an email back out on that, which one I'm missing.
Okay.
The Homestead Pavilion drainage staking, we staked all that for Clinton. I hadn't been back out there to see if he's done anything, but we got all the property staked for him. And, last month I sent out a little list of projects, maybe striping projects. Department of Transportation is going to do a DOT-let safety project in 2022 in a lot of our counties, where they're going to go in and fix some signage, maybe do the pavement markings, and in some cases do the roadway widening with the 2-foot widening, kind of like what they did with Lewis Fraser Road and Baconton Road. It's a couple of those roads they did a couple years ago for widening for us. So we put together a laundry list of possibilities, tried to make sure that we had most areas of the county represented, and sent that on. Now, what they do is they take that as kind of a wish list, and they ride through and then evaluate what they can do, and then balance money. And then, in 2022, we'll maybe get a birthday present and have some pavement striping and some signs fixed for us. So, it's a possibility to get a little funds there to do some work, and that's going to be a good deal for us. Other than that, that's all I've got today until we get back up to the green infrastructure ordinance.
Trent, I got a question. No, Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Stevens.
Trent, I know we're looking at the Lewis Fraser Road. Is there anything in the plans that we could not do anything with Lewis Fraser when you get up to Bill Carter and go Bill Carter?
Sure. That's completely up to you guys which way we want to go.
Well, I mean,
yes, sir. Bill Carter does need some help.
Yeah, it does. Because actually, from the cemetery on out to Dorchester Center is pretty good.
Right.
But the Bill Carter Road, it's in bad shape, and it's one of the main connectors almost.
Yes, sir. That is the route that most people take as far as bypass around Midway.
Right.
Not that they're bypassing Midway; they're just taking it as a shortcut.
Yeah.
So, but yes, sir. That is completely up to you guys on which route we take. So, when some suggestions come up for this year's LMIG, which ought to be coming out in July, we should get the letter for that. So, what we'll do is I'll put together a list of suggestions for you guys, and I would like for you guys to kind of tell me what you would like to see in the program, and in that way, when the program does come out, we're ready to submit for the funds.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I got a question for Trent.
Yes, sir.
Trent, I'm looking at the report. I had to come down the hallway to pull it up, but on the Homestown Pavilion drainage, did you say anything on that?
Yes, sir. We got it staked, but I haven't been back out there to see if Clint has done any work out there yet or not.
Okay, good. Okay, and Joey, I mentioned, and this was probably late last year, I got a call from one of the residents of Hometown, and we were looking at, what would it take, and I don't know if this would be something on Trent or you have to get an architect, but we were looking at maybe enclosing that pavilion at Hometown so that we could put a central heating and air unit in there as opposed to just having the cyclone fence like we got now.
Yes, sir. And I did pass that on to Jimmy, who's on here, and I think the thought was that I don't remember at what time of the year that happened, but that we would get together to try to examine what would need to be done to do that. So okay. if you want to, we can set up a meeting at your schedule for the three of us to get together. That'd be great.
Yeah, but when it was first mentioned to me, I thought I was going to have some competition during the election, but since I don't, I kind of forgot about it. We'll get together on it. They have a Thanksgiving thing down there where they give out dinners to the seniors in their community around Thanksgiving. So it came up right after that. So we good for now, but it was just like when it was real cold, and they didn't have that's what the idea came up about having an enclosed facility down there. But we'll get together. I get with you and Jimmy on that, and we'll talk about it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Recreation.
Good evening. Okay, we are ready to initiate a discussion with you guys about how we work our way back into recreation programs and facilities being used. I believe you all have a copy of the plan that was submitted. It includes like 3 phases of how we propose to work our way back into our programs. Noting first of all that pretty much everything we have now is closed with the exception of the walking trails, passive use of green space, and boat ramps and fishing piers. I can tell you that one thing that initiated a lot of confusion was when the city reopened their parks. And we were flooded with calls from city residents of Hinesville. So are the parks reopened? We just saw where they're reopened. Well, we had been open to that extent the entire time. They have simply opened theirs now for people to do the same things we were previously doing. So we have had a lot of interest in when the parks can open, specifically ball fields and tennis courts and basketball courts. And the proposal that I submitted has a phase 1, which basically allows our residents to start using our outdoor recreation facilities to include ball fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, batting cages, and the skate park. And I would tell you that, keeping in touch with my counterparts in this area, it seems that most communities are moving towards a soft or phase 1 opening of facilities. And that's basically the way it is going, and basically what's being recommended by the state and national recreation organizations, as well as the CDC. So, we feel like we're in tune with what everybody else is doing by opening those facilities. We have a few concerns. We have, during this past several weeks when we've been shut down, actually having our staff patrol all of our parks, try and ensure that, people were observing the rules. We've had, a lot of people that we had to ask to stop what they were doing because they were on facilities that were closed and doing things that were not recommended. So I'm afraid that we will be in the position of having to do quite a bit of policing, for lack of a better word, of use of the facility. Because even if we open these facilities, we're going to be faced with asking people to observe social distancing and CDC guidelines. So, one decision that I would really, in addition to when do we open these facilities, another decision would be, to what extent do we want to be involved in enforcing the rules that they are supposed to follow. We have so many parks that are spread throughout the county. It would be next to impossible for us to be at every basketball court or every ball field and to ensure that people are following the rules. I have, input from some communities who their strategy is just, okay, we're opening. We're going to expect people to observe the rules, self-police themselves, and that's where they're going. They're not going out and trying to enforce the rules. Other communities are putting very strict limits on the number of participants that can utilize facilities, having their staff there to monitor those facilities and actually control the usage there. So that's a tough issue for us, trying to figure out, how we would go about doing that with the amount of staff we have and the number of facilities we have that we would be trying to monitor. One thing we would plan on doing in this phase 1 opening of outdoor facilities would be to encourage our users to reserve the facility. That way, we could say, hey, this person has a facility reserved for a limited amount of time. That gives them the ability to come to the park knowing that they're going to have access to that facility, rather than having to stand in line or there be 20 people waiting to use it. And I'm afraid that we could be faced with that in a number of different facilities. So anyway, that's phase 1, and I guess I would ask for feedback on that before I proceed any further.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I would, the self-policing, I think, would be a good idea rather than our employees or Jimmy's employees trying to police it themselves. I don't know that would be a good idea for our employees to do that.
I agree.
We've already seen some on the news or whatever where, it can start a domestic or fighting or, that type of thing. If a person got shot in Michigan because he asked the lady to wear a mask. So I don't think our employees should be in the middle of that. And I don't have a problem with opening up the basketball court, the walking trails, other than we had discussed last week not opening up the playground equipment. But I see that my signs are still stay closed on the Gum Branch fence line, and I have seen your folks out there, in the vans in the evenings, Jimmy.
Yes.
But overall, I hadn't seen nobody on those grounds in a while. Every once in a while, there's some guys out there playing basketball, and I think that's okay. That's just my opinion, that they can police themselves.
I like your idea, Ms. Smith.
I would go along with Commissioner Thrift. I would say self-policing would be fine. Then if that doesn't work, then we would have to go to a plan B. But I believe in giving them the first opportunity to self-policing.
Do we bear any liability, Joey? That's my question.
I think Mr. Davis is on here, so I might defer to him for thank goodness.
Mr. Davis, do we bear any liability for what happens at our parks?
He's asleep.
Mr. Davis.
I didn't think he was on here, Joy.
Yes, ma'am. He came on earlier. I can try to reach out to him for that answer. And I think part of the vision was to see what you thought of the phased-in entry, and then take some notes. I can go back to him and ask. I do think on the self-policing, I don't think we anticipated necessarily having a final decision on your firm dates tonight. Maybe a target date for phase 1. And maybe what we do is, the governor's order is due to expire next week. there's some speculation that he may just release that altogether and let it go. I think it certainly makes it easier then when he doesn't have an order in place that requires social distancing for us to self-police. So I'll make a note, ask Kelly about that on the liability, and then see what his suggestion is following the governor's order and once that self-distancing requirement is removed.
Sounds good, Joe.
And that's next week.
Yes, well, that is. That's next Wednesday, as a matter of fact, I believe.
Yeah, next Wednesday.
So are you saying keeping them closed till then? I thought the city
Yes, ma'am. I would right now, I don't think because of his requirement on groups of people gathering that we are probably at liberty to open those up right now. I'll double check with Kelly on that also.
To keep the basketball courts and the skate park, all that closed, and the walking trail.
No, the walking trail's been open. The walking trail's been open.
I think that's confusing at Gun Branch because there's a closed sign on the gate at the entrance to the ball field, and there's a closed sign at like the little pavilion gate. And there was one at the walking trail gate. I don't know if it was removed today or not.
Commissioner Chris, I believe they did remove that sign after there was some question about that. I didn't realize that they had that particular gate locked. The configuration of Gun Branch Park did make it a little more difficult to show which facilities were actually closed, with really the walking trail being the only thing that was open. So we tried to remedy that. We could go back and even, add some signage to say walking trail only is open, something to that effect.
I think that would be a good idea to do that because it is a bit confusing.
I agree.
Right. Mr. Brown, I have a question too, Mr. Chair. And I heard Commissioner Thrift saying that we're thinking about keeping the playgrounds closed, which I agree with that. And I'm not saying that I am or, for or against, with the basketball courts or anything. But if we're trying to practice social distancing and we're trying to keep our numbers low, would it be a good idea to have the basketball courts open? Because even with them, you can't social distance playing basketball or let's say playing horse. And those same people probably have children. So, I mean, we shut down the playground, but they're going to play basketball and then going home. I mean, hey, what I'm saying is let's just keep it unison, whichever way we go. That's just my opinion.
Batting cages would offer a challenge also, because I know there's some folks that are anxious to use those. Most of those are going to want to be used by, at this point in time, traveling teams or folks that use our facilities, and there would be at least 12 kids there at one time huddled around the fence. So, I think that makes good sense to kind of all be in or all be out. Now, again, I'll lean back to Kelly and the governor's order, because if he keeps those tight restrictions on there, it doesn't really matter what we want to do. And so I realize what some other parks and stuff are doing, Jimmy, there, but I'm not sure that, they're clearly running afoul of that social distancing requirement. I think the thing was to take some notes. Do you like the phase plan? And then, if so, let us target some opening dates for you, which would be great.
But
I agree with the phase.
Yeah. Go ahead. Give me the. What I was going to say was I want to see what the governor's going to do. If he's going to do that next week, it won't hurt us to hold the basketball off for a week. But they can still use the walking trails, that kind of thing. It's still available to them. I'll just tell y'all this from the inside. In fact, I'm calling from the hospital. We are testing more patients every day, patients and employees every day. So I don't want us. I don't want to get complacent that this thing is gone. It's not gone. So it won't hurt us to err on the side of caution and see what Governor Kemp does next week, and then make our decisions after that time. In the meantime, they have access to the walking trails at our parks. Yeah.
And I would add, Mr. Chairman, too, that some of these other agencies that I've spoken with have a different way to control their parks. Some of them in the city, for example, where they can lock a gate and the entire park is closed. So, it's easier for them to control what's going on there than our system, where we have, a number of parks scattered out throughout the county with no fences around them. So, no way to control what happens there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Jimmy and I had talked about this a little bit, but that is a problem. The senior citizens building, you take it, when you go in, people want to go to the senior citizens building, and if there's a gate across Tupelo Trail, you wind up with a problem. So, you could block the entrance over there on Patriots Trail, but you do wind up with some issues, going into the senior citizens building. And Jimmy and I had also discussed some signage. Now, whoever thought we was going to close the park, and we have to. So, we're going to need to get signs. It's not going to be too expensive. Jimmy, I know you've already checked on them, but we're going to need those signs that's out there visible, all, in at least 3 or 4 different places that say walking trail is open only. I think we need to err on the side of caution, like Mr. Fraser said, and let's stay off the basketball courts and anything else. People are utilizing the park. I think Glenn Bryant opened up this week too, didn't it?
It did, yes.
Okay. But, we've discussed this, and it's something that we're going to have to look at further down the road on being able to lock these parks off. Even folks, they'll get out there in their pickup truck and drive across the fields in the middle of the night. So let's just let's plan on doing that in the next 8 to 10 months if we're still around here by then.
But certainly for future parks.
Mr. Walden, we got those signs are prepared ready now. We've got them on hand, ready to start putting them up.
Well,
so Joey, thank you, Commissioner Walden. Joey, so do we need to, after we find out what the governor is going to do, we're going to have a call meeting to determine what we do, or how do we best handle that so that Jim and his staff will have clear directions?
I think it would be good if y'all think it's okay for y'all to digest this a little bit, and then let us, if you're okay with a phased opening that looks something like this, let us go back now and implant some dates in there for you when we know when we can foresee these things by phases. And of course, those would be tentative, especially phase 2 and phase 3. Based on when other things, when gymnasiums open and stuff like that, because we will need to talk about, and Jimmy's already thought about, pools and what you do there, and any kind of a summer sports season we might try to pull off. And again, some of that's dependent on what happens with the cases now that everything's open, and whether they start to spike again or whether they continue on the downfall. And then in what guidance we get from the state and CDC. But it could very well be that you have a shortened sports season, depending on timing of what happens nationally. But we'll go ahead and try to plug some dates on these, and then try to, hopefully, Mr. Chairman, after that meeting next week, the governor's order, when we see what's going to happen with that, if we could have a phone conference, that would be great.
Okay. Let's plan for that.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Martin? We like the concept, Mr. Martin.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, James. you.
Green infrastructure.
Yes, sir. What we have tonight is stormwater management program for green infrastructure and low impact development program. And we presented this back to you in February. We need to go ahead and get this adopted by the county. This is not something that I think I used the term ordinance, but it's really not an ordinance. It's a program. But I need to get the Board of Commissioners to approve the program so we can send it off to EPD and have it approved by EPD. And basically what it does is it's a program to encourage green development and low impact development. And what we've done is we've gone through and we've tailored it to write out the things that will be difficult for the county to maintain and things that would, in the right end, things that would be positive for our county. So we didn't just go take all the green infrastructure ideas and adopt them. So, of course, we don't want to do anything that's going to make our maintenance responsibility from the road department any more intrusive than it is. So basically what this does is this gets us a good program, keeps us in compliance with our NPDES program, and gives people a little bit more of an opportunity to do some green infrastructure. So what I need is just somebody I need to be able to adopt it and have it approved by the county commissioners so I can go ahead and forward it on to EPD.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Long on green infrastructure?
One question, Mr. Chairman. Trent.
Yes, sir.
This is basically a program that I guess our LCPC and Planning Commission, they've already looked at it too?
Yes, sir. Well, what we did is the Water Council Technical Committee did look at it, and we wrote it so that all the municipalities that are required to have the green infrastructure low impact development program are the same. So our program in City of Hinesville is basically the same, and so will the City of Walterville. Allenhurst and Flemington have less than 10,000 people, so they have the same requirements. But yes, sir, we've kind of got this all set up. We did run it through the Water Technical Committee.
Would Limerick be considered a low impact?
No, sir. No, sir. That's low impact development is going to be just different types of being able to reduce your impervious areas, using brick pavers, pervious concrete, things like bioswales, and we allow those on private developments where we don't have to maintain the bioswales. Just different types of stormwater ponds that include heavy vegetation in them. They're really nice looking items if they're done well and well maintained. So that's basically what it is to reduce our rainfall runoff and increase our rainfall runoff quality. So we're reducing quantity and improving quality with this.
With some cosmetics every now and then.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Sometimes like the bioswales, if they're in a public right-of-way or something like that, they're terribly difficult, and our guys are not going to be set up to maintain those. So then one thing that is required as part of this program is that if these items are included in your plan, that you have to sign a stormwater management agreement that you're going to maintain them and that they're going to be kept in good functioning order, and that the county is not going to have to maintain it. So, we're very specific on making sure that it's not something we're going to end up with.
Well, on that note right there, and Commissioner Gillard's here, who maintains the water retention ponds, Commissioner Gillard? Like at Albee football field. The city does that, don't they? And all these other little parks.
Yeah, we the city has some ponds, and then there's some private ponds that I think let's say like the one behind Walmart. They're responsible for that, and I think LCPC inspect them. But we got some that belongs to the city of Hinesville that we have to go in and maintain the integrity of the structure and mow the weeds and stuff like that. Make sure that the pond is doing what it's supposed to do.
Right. So we would have anything the county would have, Trenton, and that would be the responsibility of Clinton's group to inspect them and make sure they are, in fact, got enough cattails in them and enough cypress and this, that, and other.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In actuality, that's it. But that's what I was trying to tell you. Is I tried to limit what we put on the county. We tried to encourage it in the private development sector.
Well, yeah, that's one reason I want to make sure, because them folks' cart is already loaded. So,
yeah, they are.
We definitely want to make sure that the ink's real heavy on their side. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions of Mr. Long? All right. Chair, entertain a motion to approve the green infrastructure ordinance. Is there a second?
Second. Gary.
Okay, Commissioner Gary. Any further discussion? Mr. Brown, the roll call.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Frazier.
Aye.
Commissioner Gilliard.
Aye.
Commissioner Lovett.
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Commissioner Thrift.
Aye.
And Commissioner Walden.
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, Joey, I've been sitting here all this time, and I just figured out now how you've been doing the roll call. You going in alphabetical order?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was trying to figure out how we set when we up there, and you're going. It's not 1 through 6. It's not. So I got it now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm always last.
I'll be glad to do it any way you want me to, sir.
No, that's fine. I got it now. Please don't switch up.
Hey, Jimmy, the only person behind me is Paul Zeckman.
That's right.
All right, so if y'all don't need me anymore, I'm going to sign off.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great night. Take care.
Okay.
Administrative report.
Yes, sir. And I'll try to run through this real quickly. We've already really talked about the fire station construction there. Recreation improvements, just to let you know, we're following up. Mr. Mosley met with Mr. Long and Mr. Martin to do a handicap accessibility look, and they're finalizing a report for the board there. Of course, that's something that's been prioritized to come out of Splosh. We'll tell you, too, that somewhat related to recreation improvements, Mr. Long has done the surveying for the whole Miller Park area to include the solid waste and fire site, and he's going to try to propose a layout that everybody can look at. So, I talked about that this morning. That's where he is on that project. So it's that large planning project. So, again, related to recreation and other improvements. Just real quickly, I think we had some discussion the other day about elections, meeting with the election board tomorrow afternoon along with Kelly to talk about elections in the COVID environment. We have reached out to Peggy McGee at the hospital, had a long conversation with her yesterday, the infectious control specialist there. It is going to be challenging to try to ramp up for 13 precincts in order to prepare for that, but we're putting together a plan that we will be able to share with the commission and everybody else. That plan will include protection of employees or poll workers, along with training of those poll workers prior to that. We're on a pretty short rope as far as early voting goes, because that starts week after next. And so had some conversations with Lenny Darden about trying to shift juvenile court to the Justice Center, which he will do, and then trying to plan for use of that building in a distancing and COVID environment. So working through those details. We'll share those as soon as we finish them. We'll be holding some meetings with people in this building and in that building to talk about trying to move forward to reopen. But the election is the most pressing thing right now and in that environment. So, again, there'll be several people there tomorrow afternoon, including Jerry Johnson, to talk about what may be needed supply-wise as we move forward with those elections. I think Commissioner Stevens asked this the other day, so I apologize for being redundant, but we did order the absentee ballot box. We're preparing the place to put that where it's being watched by camera. There will only be one, and that will be located at the main office up here. So elections is a planning episode on its own to try to get ready for that. I will tell you that, not to knock them too much because it's a huge lift statewide, but there's not a lot of things that the state's able to help with on that. Nothing from supplies, nothing from screening, nothing from sanitizing. So, at this point, we're trying to make the arrangements on our own. But that's where we are kind of with elections right now. That process is unfolding as we speak. I'd be glad to answer any questions related to that COVID and elections. The other thing is, as you may know or heard, the Chief Justice of Georgia Supreme Court extended the stay on court proceedings until the middle of June, actually June 13th. I think basically just trying to be cautious. We'll tell you they're going to start issuing gun permits in 2 weeks, actually next week, over at the Justice Center. So John Long and I have engaged in some talks about that. They've got that pretty well in hand. Those will be done by appointment only. As you're aware, that center is open for limited traffic related to certain things that didn't close because of the court order, such as certain petitions that are able to be filed through probate court, certain things, real estate transactions that have to occur through clerk of court. So, but general walk-in traffic is not permitted over there at this time. There is some feeling, I did talk to Judge Rose, there's some feeling that basically after the 12th, then he'll have a reentry plan, the Chief Justice will, for starting those courts back up. That rolls over into the budget just a little bit because, as you heard Kim mention, we're doing no state court business right now at all, so fines and forfeitures for that April and now part of May period, actually what may be all of May, are going to be way down. The other thing that those folks face is the huge startup when it does open back up, much like Mr. Jones will face. There was a directive from Department of Revenue today that did extend the vehicle registration renewals to June 15th. And so, again, the caution there is get ready because when the doors open, they're going to really open. But those have been extended through June 15th also. I floated out to you something that Mr. Mosley and I had worked on, and that is a Liberty County reopening plan for buildings. As John and I talked about that a little bit, John Long, consistency is better if we can stand to do it. But like I mentioned, week after next, we're going to have to open the old courthouse at least to voting, at least to early voting. So we put together a little reopening plan, basically that involves employee protection, the entrances and checkpoints where they are applicable, social distancing requirements, sanitization that you'll see, and then stuff that we want to push out to the media. I kind of almost like we're doing on recreation. I kind of want to see what the governor's perspective is as we talk to our counterparts around the state on buildings and what's happening. Most of them are still limiting traffic. The most expansive, if it's open, has been an operation like the Justice Center, where people make arrangements to come in and have appointments. I do see that whenever that timing is, following expiration of his order and direction by the commission, that we would start slow, maybe limiting the number of people that go into the tag office at one time, limiting the number of people, in fact, that enter the building at one time, maybe also doing some markings on the floor that Jerry and I have already talked about, where you have lobby space or counter space, and those folks aren't, for instance, in our office, because of the small lobby, we would limit that to one person per entrance period, and there would be a taped off spot on the floor that could be removed later. The distancing requirement to be met. The other person would simply stay out in the hallway to be able to wait, their turn to come in. That being said, we had some discussion last time about plexiglass. When we had Peggy McGee engaged yesterday, one of the issues that we talked to her about was plexiglass, and she does not recommend that because she says what's going to happen then is those people are going to come straight up to that plexiglass to get as close as they can get. She said what you need to practice is keeping them as far away as possible. And so the distancing requirements, I think, would be better in that. But a lot of those things have been outlined in here for you to look over and consider. And I think, again, maybe on that conference call we have following the governor's order, then, I think I would like to talk about a date maybe that we can start soft reopenings as things start to crank back up. I am going to, like I said, have a meeting with Glenda and Virgil and some of those scheduled for tomorrow afternoon to talk about what their desires are so we can blend that together, and also do the same at the old courthouse with LCPC and those folks. I do see that traffic over there being limited, though, during that early voting period, even to the point, and even at some polls where folks may have to come in, sign in or give their name, and then return to their cars to be called in their cars to come into the precinct building. All these precincts are going to be a little bit different, especially the small block buildings like in Gum Branch and in Fleming West, going to be a challenge. But those are some things that the hospital is doing that have been real successful, and people seem to prefer that, waiting in their vehicles in certain cases in their good feel area to get a call rather than trying to stand in line under some distancing requirement. So, again, this is just furnished for your review tonight. Comments, please. Additions and takeaways. Peggy's helping us a little bit with this plan, too. It's something that she said yesterday as we had her on the phone is pretty interesting, and it was pertaining to polls, but it also pertains to employees in a work environment. A couple of things, I guess. One was screening people that come in, and she said you don't do that. She said basically you need to treat everybody as if they have the virus, and then you need to protect those people and their risk of contact as best you can, with the realization that even things like gloves she does not recommend. She said there's too much infection being spread through gloves on a routine basis because people don't know how to take it on and off properly, or they don't do it when their face itches and they want to scratch. They're contaminated. So, again, she's helping us walk through that. That was some pretty interesting comments to hear from her, really over things that she has seen in that working environment already as they happen. So that's what I wanted to give to y'all tonight to take away. Again, maybe we can talk about that after the governor's plan for whatever that is.
Hey, Joey, I have
any questions.
Joey, I got one, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at this, and I looked at it earlier, and just one thing that I was just thinking about. What about riding in the elevators? We may need to probably just put like one person in it at a time. Because that's you put 2 or 3 people in there. There's no distancing if you got that many people in the elevator.
No, that's a very good point. And I think what we would do there is we would put signage that would encourage only one. It's almost like the ball field trying to monitor it. But no, I think that definitely needs to be added to this and definitely signed.
Hey, Mary, was that you laughing, Mary?
Not right. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah,
I had a question.
No, but seriously, though, I mean, elevated. That's something to be to think about.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the discussion, but I bet it will be.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Mr. Chairman, I have a question concerning
Yes,
the
ma'am.
voting precincts and all. Is that, Joy, could we consider maybe having early voting at other precincts or just downtown?
I mean, but
Because
actually,
I'm afraid
it's
people are going to get very discouraged if there's long lines and having to wait in the car. And I mean, it's going to be a challenge.
It is going to be a big challenge.
So we have.
It's going to be a big challenge all the way around. But
It
yes, ma'am, to answer your question, Department of Justice has to approve the sites ahead of time, and there's not time to do any more. But there are two set up for the county. There's one at the East End Center, and there's one up here. East End Center probably is going to work like a dream. I mean, that's it's spaced out from where they do it. We can put stuff on the floor. There's a portico that you can space. It's this building next door that's going to give us a challenge. Going and coming in the hallways, they're probably going to need to come in one door. We'll limit the number of people that can pick up their clipboard and fill that out. When that person passes out of that area, they'll go down to end the hall, and another person can come in. And then when they exit the voting area down there, they're going to need to come out the door closest to the annex so they don't double back into the traffic in the other end. So a lot of those logistics, that's a huge test, but we'll get through it.
Yeah.
I will say, I think. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Is it 1 week or 2 weeks prior to June 9th?
It's actually almost 3 weeks. It's a little over 2.
3 weeks of early voting?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Joey.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Joey. Marion.
Yes, sir.
So there won't be anything between the voters and the poll workers to protect them when they come up, although they come up one by one. There won't be anything between them.
The only thing, they've got to be able to move and be mobile. So, and we're going to go through all these tomorrow. But actually, as you walk into the polls, you're going to walk in probably to a sanitization table where somebody makes sure they sanitize. And that'll probably be the person that is in charge of sanitization in that precinct. They'll sanitize. They'll be passed off to a poll worker who will have the card that's been sanitized. They'll probably, set the person up at the booth as they do, get them operational. The booth, of course, been sanitized after every use. I think the state's going to supply some styluses so you don't have to actually touch the machine. But then at the end of your voting period, that poll worker then will help you scan your ballot in, and then basically take your stylus, sanitize your stylus, use the card to the card station where those people will sanitize over there. The only thing that Peggy may recommend, and we're making plans for it now, is that those people will have masks if you're a poll worker, if you're able to wear a mask. That's another problem that Peggy points out, is that all people are not able to do that. People with respiratory problems have an issue. So we're looking into some face guards for them. And, of course, the problem with all of that is finding the supplies. And Peggy quick to point out that gloves, masks, and face shields are at a premium. So she's helping us through all that. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Stevens, the short answer to your question is they will probably have some type of face guard that we would ask them to wear along with a mask.
Okay. So now back to the other part of this question, and I'll be through what we talked about earlier. There's nothing for security and upstairs at all that we put in place.
I'm sorry, you got overridden there a little bit. Security upstairs?
No, for the security downstairs and over at the Justice Center, whenever we do open the doors, And like you said, and like the chairman said, don't fool ourselves that this thing is going away. There's nothing that will be put in place for protection otherwise for security at the annex, the Justice Center, and upstairs.
To my knowledge, there won't be any more for security. They're having a tough time finding security folks anyway to work those doors, from my understanding. Of course, we'll have security at the old courthouse. Our early voting's going on to help guide that. And they did say that they would do
Joe, I think maybe I didn't state it the correct way. Health-wise, protection for health-wise.
Oh, he means like plexiglass.
They will be optional for those employees. But again, the thing we want to do is limit the number of transactions that have to occur face-to-face anyway. I mean, that's the key thing. We want to do that education. We want to limit those people and basically make them distance. So, rather than having to come to the counter, we don't want you to come to the counter. We will stop them when they come in the lobby here behind the tape and say, can I help you? Yeah, I came to pick up a job application. Well, you need to go around the corner to where those are being provided on a table outside of Laura's office, which is also distance. We're going to shut one of those doors, and we're going to have those available outside. They'll actually sit in that hallway to complete those, and then can put them back in the box. So what we want to try to do is limit contact, period. But yes, sir, we will be providing anybody at the counter, as you can see on this, will be provided a mask and or glasses if they so desire.
Joe, I hear you, but I kind of feel, I'm thinking, I'll talk to Peggy too. People though, like, the deputies at the Justice Center are a little bit different than say in the annex building. Check with your peers, please, sir, and see what they're contemplating.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because we went from deputies and then reversed to safety. So, yeah, the deputies are going to
the same thing.
Yeah, he didn't mean safety. He meant protection. He was trying to say some kind of barrier or something between the people that are dead.
Yeah, I'm still lost. I apologize. Are you talking about safety for the deputies?
For the deputies and upstairs.
Okay. What is it we would want to do upstairs?
Well, put some kind of shield up there. I don't care if it's potable or not. Because all it takes is for one person.
Commissioner Stevens, other than shielding off the whole office up front, there's not a way to put a shield across that entire lobby. If you think about it, the plexiglass that you see at the grocery stores, the people are asked to stay behind the plexiglass, right? So if the people are asked to stay behind the plexiglass, they can be asked to stay behind the tape. And if that person refuses to stay behind the tape, then they'll be removed. And that person that's asking them, I mean, I can tell you, in our office in here, there's not an issue that can't be cured. That person, Miss Evelyn, has the right to back away from that counter and come into this conference room. Downstairs, a total different environment in planning and zoning or in permitting, where they have to come into that short office and they are on you. So, again, Mr. Chairman, you might want to talk to Peggy. I heard that loud and clear about the plexiglass yesterday. The thing is, you don't want them within 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have a pass-through window, and as she said yesterday, they're going to want to lean down and talk to you underneath the hole. And that's been her experience.
Yeah, I'll talk to her.
Yes, sir. I can tell you there's no feasible way to put plexiglass over every counter space and cover the counter spaces completely.
Yeah.
But Joey, there's a glass in the door that you walk through, so just lock that door and nobody can come in. I mean,
well, you don't want to lock the door because you don't want to lock the door because somebody's got to go open it to let them in.
That's what I'm saying. If they need to, you walk up to the door and you can talk through that glass and you can say, "Can I help you?" The lady says, "I need an application." She says, "Go through this door right here."
Let's think. I mean, in that case, I'd rather just keep them out of the building and let them call from downstairs. I mean, we're talking about letting people back into buildings. So in that case, all I've done is let them in the hallway. I'd rather not have them in the hallway. I'd rather them stay out of the building altogether if we're not going to open. We got to get back to a point where people come in.
Well, I thought somebody was already coming up there from what I was understanding there from the conversation.
No, sir, they're not. They're not coming in the buildings at all right now.
Let me try to pick it. I'll get back with you, Joey.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Joey, you're talking about when we start to open up, but right now nobody's coming in the building. Is that correct?
No, they're not even. Okay. I'm talking about when you reintroduce people to the buildings.
Right.
Oh, well, God, when that happens,
I agree with that.
Yeah. I thought you was letting them in already.
No,
so
they're not coming
in at all.
No. It's closed.
Good.
Oh. Yeah. There should be nobody going in there to see Miss Evelyn, and at this point.
Well, I know I hadn't been up there, and that's why I hadn't been up there. I thought you'd done opened up something.
No, sir.
No, you can get in if you needed to. But, I do see people trying to with the plexiglass up. I do because a lot of people are using those shields or whatever. More people try to get closer to the counter. But
again, for instance, up here trying to hang plexiglass all the way around both sides of this counter is really not practical.
No.
Just a quick question, Justin. And is there any way possible we could put something like down on the ground, like a line or something, tell them not to move? Because I know, when was that? Last week when I had to come, I did see the sign up, but I don't know if a lot of people pay attention to it. From my experience, like even with my business, I have signs posted and they walk right by them, and I have them posted on the window. So, So is there any way possible we could put like some striping or something down on the floor, some temporary striping? At least that.
Yes,
we're looking at that.
Yes, that's part of the plan. With Jerry and I've already, he's already got the outlet for it. And that would be our plan once we reopen in every building. In fact, well, again, when you think about it, using this office and Paul's office as an example, there wouldn't be but one person let in this office at a time because of the distancing requirement, and we'd back away from that counter probably 6 to 8 feet and have a tape there. So once you even came in, the one person that could come in would have to stay back 6 or 8 feet from that mark on the floor. Yes, sir. So y'all just look that over and give me any other thoughts that you got, and we're going to go ahead. And I know we're going to need the marking tape and the sanitizer. We've already kind of got those on order and specified out because any way that we go, we will need those tapes and that sanitizer. So again, trying to find sanitizer at a premium, but we're working through it.
Hey, Joey.
Yes, sir.
Joey, one more thing. How many handicap accesses are they into the old courthouse?
3.
So that's going to
2
people coming in on.
I believe there's 2 now that I think about it. I don't think there's one on the East Court side. I'll have to double check.
If you're going to have to do something there, people that's handicapped or wheelchair accessibility or whatever on walkers, if they come up, they'll have to go probably back out. And I'm just trying to think we may have to put something up about parking. where people don't have that far distance to go up there to
right. That's a very good.
Get on top of one another, and I didn't. I know there was one handicap spot up there in the front. I don't think there's one on the other side, and I don't think so either. Right, you're gonna want people coming in a wheelchair, but you'll want them going back out the other side. And I know that's going to create a little bit of a hardship, because then they got wherever they came in at, they're going to have to roll all the way back around. But I don't know. I wish we could get that moving. That's something we need to try to work on in 2021, getting that early voting moved somewhere else, because these other spots, people can get out of their car, go across the parking lot, and go right into the building. So, whatever we got to do, we're going to need to address that, even if we have to get the governor to come down.
Well, you bring up a great point, and that is about accessibility for handicap, and that may be an exception, but it's also brings up the other issue with these elections, and that's workers, period. Poll workers, period. That's something we're going to be talking about tomorrow afternoon with that board, because it's going to, as we talked about, take more workers to help these folks so they don't have to wait. Connie brings up a great point, and then you get into the voting machine thing altogether. That whole process, as y'all know, and you've seen it, was going to be a long process anyway. Now we got all the absentees, and now you got this, and it's really a challenge on its own, but we're going to get there. We'll get through it. So, listen, I appreciate the comments on this, and Joe and I will look at those. We'll put them in here. We'll certainly, Mr. Chairman, let me know when you talk to Peggy, and anything else that we can recommend there, Commissioner Stevens. I mean, anything that you got. Y'all know this place better than a lot of us. So, once we reopen, we tape off on the hallway some too.
George, since you're going to be attending that meeting tomorrow afternoon, would you ask the board over there, do they anticipate counting the absentee ballot before the poll closes?
I don't think they can. I thought they had to wait. I thought I saw in the governor's thing that you have to wait until 7.
No, you don't. All you got to do, all the board has to do is get permission, and they can start anytime after 12 o'clock.
Okay, I'll certainly ask that question. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
The only other thing is just to remind you of the calendar that you've got there, and we are having a little budget work session starting at 9 on Thursday. Social distancing here won't be open to the public. We did let Mr. Parker know in case he wanted to come work through that with us. And then the committee will meet back again, or the commissioners that come will meet back again, anybody that wants to, on Friday morning from 9 to 12. Then we can see kind of how far we get there. I will tell you that I think we mentioned the other day that there was going to be a test site set up this week by Department of Public Health from 8:30 to 11:30 at Schumann. That is set up to occur. However, Department of Public Health has decided that going forward, they only want to do one site a day. What's happening actually Thursday is they're going to do here in the morning and long in the afternoon. And I think now they're anticipating the numbers. So starting next week, it's going to be on Wednesdays, and it'll run from Wednesday at 10:30 to 2:30 at those sites. So those are free testing sites, open to the public. They can come. Probably need to be prepared to wait just a little bit, but we'll see how that works out. But I want to let you know I just found out today there had been a change in that also starting next week. And, Mr. Chairman, that's all I had. I certainly do appreciate your patience.
Thank you. Anything else we could do?
Right. Hey, Joey, I just have one question. Do we have a number on how many people have been tested, in the last week with these mobile sites?
I don't, but I can reach out. In fact, we have a call tomorrow with Dr. Davis, and I can reach out in advance of that to see if he can get us that information.
Because Diversity did a drive-through also. Diversity is doing testing.
Right.
They got a bunch of testing kits, a lot, and I think our numbers will go up, but I don't know that they're serious numbers. But numbers are numbers. But those kits are coming pretty readily available right now than before, so we're probably going to see our numbers spike. Because they've opened it up now for anyone to be tested.
Yeah.
Any and all could be tested, so you don't even have to have the symptoms.
Yeah, I believe I'm going to go get tested.
A lot of people have.
A lot of people are.
Yeah.
But,
what Commissioner, what you're indicating though is I call it the quick finger stick test. That's the one that's questionable reliability on the little quick test. If you do the nose one, throat one, you're pretty good with those. But for the little quick finger stick test, that's the one where the reliability is questionable.
Right. Okay. And I don't know that they knock the numbers off once somebody, we've been stuck on 37 for a couple of weeks. In 2 weeks, they should knock you off if maybe you've recovered or you quarantined. I don't know how they're doing those numbers.
I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
Right. And Mr. Chair,
37, somebody should have got well. But anyway.
Right, and the reason why I was asking that question is because I think I answered in the beginning when everything was going on, just to kind of monitor our numbers here in the community, and just like Commissioner Thirk was just saying, it's a good thing we've been stuck on this number for a while, but with the increased testing, that there's also a possibility that our numbers can increase. But I just kind of want some statistical data to say, okay, well, 1,000 people have been tested in Liberty County and we only have 37 cases. Or is it we've only tested 50 people and we have 37 cases? Those two things are completely different. So it's kind of difficult for us to kind of really, so it's kind of difficult for us to kind of really monitor it by just the numbers of people who've been affected. So I just want to know how many people really have been tested in Liberty County, and I know they have to have those type of numbers somewhere somehow, because they're not sending out and not giving an accurate number on how many people.
Now that there are different testing sites, are they all giving their numbers to the health department? So we don't know if those numbers are skewed. But I did have to make a visit down to Memorial and to the ER with a friend of mine, and I tell you what, they were not using their outdoor tent that they thought they were going to have to use for COVID. And obviously they didn't let me go right in with her. I mean, they had social distancing. We had to sit outside or stay in the car while she went in. But it was good to see that they were not having to use that tent for COVID patients outside.
Right. There's a plus.
That's right.
All right, we'll get that mentioned. Joey, I'm sure Angela Harley can answer most of that question.
Yeah.
I'll make a note to try to get that from him tomorrow when we talk to him.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Anything else to go there?
We need a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn.
Don't move, Mr. Chair.
I make that motion.
Commissioner Frazier. All right. All in favor? We don't need a roll call. All in favor? All right. Good night, guys.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.